On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, Cybertruck adds 2 significant new options in the design studio for Foundation Series buyers. Tesla appears to be prepping a Siri-like voice assistant for the fleet. More big companies get their hands on the Tesla Semi, and more. Howdy, friends. Yes, that was for you, Haley. Welcome to Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, episode 458, publishing on May 12th, 2024. As always, my trusty canine companion, but not canine companion, proper noun canine companion. That would be Zelina, and she's up there doing well towards her service dog training. Anyway, Daisy the Boxer joining me here to my left on the couch, and there, as always, is so much fun Tesla stuff to talk about. I do promise it's all fun this week. There's no bad stuff to talk about on this episode. I will start by reminding you that Takeover, the largest Tesla owners event of 2024, is happening this summer, July 27th and 28th in San Luis Obispo, California. There's going to be all kinds of stuff there. I will be there hosting a panel. There's going to be a just informal, not officially part of the event, but informal Ride the Lightning listener meetup. So you can get a 10% discount on the registration. If you do go ahead and register now, that registration discount code is Cyber10. Cyber10, and the website to go to get your tickets is xtakeover2024.eventbrite.com, with Eventbrite spelled EVENTBRITE. So looking forward to hopefully meeting a bunch of you there. And for those of you I have met before, seeing you again. It's going to be a fun event. Last year's really was. Real quick, before I get rolling, something I didn't even have a chance to get into my notes because Tesla just posted this an hour before I started my recording, and that is new 0.99% APR financing on new Model Y if you order by the end of the month, May 31st. So that's US only. So apologies to my Canadian friends north of the border. US only here, but 0.99% APR financing. That is pretty cool given where interest rates have been over the last, number of months, even last couple of years here. So good stuff on that. If that is of interest to you, check it out, Tesla.com, and go configure a Model Y, see what it looks like for you. A quick update from last week with a tip of my cap to listener Ken from Centerville, Massachusetts for pointing this out. When I told you about the new Model Y long-range rear-wheel drive last week, after I got that news in a text from a Tesla source of mine in the middle of recording the podcast last week, I didn't have a chance, obviously, to fully research it, fully gather my thoughts. What Ken kindly pointed out is that the long-range rear-wheel drive Model Y only has the basic sound system in the car, not the premium sound system that has more speakers like the long-range dual-motor Model Y and the long-range performance Model Y have. So just wanted to put that out there because that is certainly something worth mentioning, although, quite frankly, it doesn't change my opinion on this new offering. I still think that the long-range rear-wheel drive Y is a heck of a value, and I still think it's probably going to be the better way to go for, I don't know if I was about to say the word most, but I will say, I'll phrase it this way. I think the long-range rear-wheel drive Y is going to be the better way to go for a lot of Model Y buyers, except in one specific scenario. I do want to point this out because, again, this is just me fleshing out the thoughts I didn't have time to last week. If you want a 7-seat Model Y, the long-range rear-wheel drive is not for you because you can't get the 7-seat option in this new trim. It's only available on the long-range dual motor. And as we know, the 7-seat option has never been available on the Performance Y. Sadly, not available on this new long-range rear-wheel drive Model Y either, but at least every Model Y configuration, no matter how you option it, if you get 7-seat, if you get the new Quicksilver paint, Ultra Red, every single Model Y configuration, yes, even if you add the tow hitch on there for $1,000, no matter how you option your Y, is eligible for the full $7,500 point of sale federal tax credit, provided that you meet the income requirements for that. So that is all good news. I sure hope the Model 3 is going to be behind it in the not too distant future. As I've said before, I've got to think that Tesla is working on a solution to make sure that all trims of the Model 3 qualify for that full $7,500. Next this week, and it's one other note on this new Model Y long-range rear-wheel drive, apparently Tesla has been shipping them for a little while now under the guise of the standard range rear-wheel drive, because Elon Musk says those cars should soon be eligible for an optional paid upgrade that would unlock the rest of that range via a software unlock. Elon tweeted this past week, quote, "The 260-mile range Model Ys built over the past several months actually have more range that can be unlocked for $1,500 to $2,000, gains 40 to 60 miles of range, depending on which battery cells you have. We're working through the regulatory approvals to enable this." So that price range, I'm not quite sure where the discrepancy comes from. He mentions which cells you have in the car. So maybe this catches the tail end of the standard range models that were built using 4680 cells out of Texas. Not quite sure there. But if it's $1,500 to $2,000, then honestly, that seems reasonably priced to me, considering you are getting a substantial range boost there. 40 to 60 miles is not an insignificant amount of range at all. And I would highly recommend this upgrade if you're affected by this, if you've got one of the cars that's going to be eligible. Because if you can budget for it, and I understand that $1,500 to $2,000, still a lot of money, but if you can budget for it, range is always king. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you've probably heard me say that at least once at some point over the years, and it's just true. Range is always king, and an extra $1,500 to $2,000 to unlock additional battery capacity that clearly none of us knew was even there in some of these Model Ys is awesome. So once this gets approved and becomes available to purchase, I will be sure to mention it here. And speaking of Model Y related follow-ups, yes, we're still talking about the Model Y. What I expected would happen has in fact happened. And that is the new Quicksilver paint, well, new to North America. Quicksilver paint is now officially in the Model Y design studio, meaning that you can order a new custom Model Y in that color in your exact desired configuration. You don't have to grab one from inventory and hope that you're getting most of the options you want in order to get Quicksilver. Now, there's a catch here as well. It's unfortunately, at least for the time being, only available on the long-range all-wheel drive, the long-range dual motor, and the performance variants, meaning that clearly Giga Texas is not building the new long-range rear-wheel drive Model Y yet. Thus, I can now officially say that Tesla has a sixth color, albeit in this case for only one of its cars, but 6 colors available to choose from. That is the first time that has been the case since 2018. We're talking about 6 years since that was last the case, when for much of that year, including at the time that I ordered my car, if you haven't been listening for a while or it's just been 6 years, I ordered my car in May of 2018. That was when I was finally able to order a Performance Model 3. I took delivery of it when those first Model 3 Performances started rolling off the line at the end of July. Anyway, 2018, much of that year, there were 7, not even 6, 7 color choices at that moment in time. You had multi-coat red, deep blue metallic, midnight silver metallic, solid black, pearl white multi-coat, so the 5 that we've been used to for the past 5+ years. And then the original silver metallic was available at that time, and obsidian black metallic, which was a multi-coat black that had a little metallic flake in the paint that the solid black does not. Now, both of those latter two, silver metallic and obsidian black metallic, were axed in fall of 2018. I think it was around, I want to say September. I should have looked it up specifically, but definitely fall of 2018, because I remember it was 2-3 months after I got my car. And no Tesla has had more than 5 color choices at a single time since the fall of 2018. Though, as you well know, we have had a couple of colors get swapped out in that time, but the actual number of color choices has not gone above 5 over the past 5+ years until right now. The question now is whether or not Tesla will also eventually make Quicksilver available on both the long-range rear-wheel drive Model Y, as well as the Model 3, Model S, and Model X, which I was daydreaming about when I first broke this story for you. Was that 3-4 weeks ago now? Knowing Tesla, I think there's a good chance that they're going to see what the take rate is on Quicksilver for the Model Y, and then go from there. If nobody chooses it, and, well, let's be honest, as a $2,000 option, that's the most expensive paint option Tesla has, it's the same price as Ultra Red, it's automatically going to turn some folks off. Some people are just not going to choose it because they don't want to pay an extra $2,000 just for a paint color, even if they super like it. So, in that sense, I have to figure that the numbers in a vacuum on the take rate for Quicksilver isn't necessarily going to look amazing. But if they see a take rate they like, keeping that context in mind, then hopefully they will expand the offering. Now, it's also possible that they do fully intend to offer it on S3 and X, but that they're just choosing to implement it into one vehicle at a time, in this case, only in Texas as far as North American operations are concerned, and that Tesla's ironing out all the kinks with this new color in production while simultaneously using it as a bit of a demand lever to pull on what we all know is not only their most popular vehicle, but the world's most popular vehicle, most popular new vehicle as well, in what has been a slow year thus far. It would be similar to what Tesla did with Ultra Red and Stealth Gray last fall when they introduced them on the S and the X first. Personally, I do think that the odds are pretty good that Quicksilver does come to the other cars. If it doesn't, I figure there's a very good chance that it may end up just being a technical issue, meaning that the Fremont factory paint shop, is just not able to match the quality on Quicksilver that Giga Berlin and Giga Texas can do. Because as we all know, and it's just obvious to say, but the cars all have to be consistent. You can't have somebody buy a Quicksilver Model Y that's built out of Texas and one built out of Fremont and have the Texas one be a noticeably, obviously better quality paint finish. So it's got to be consistent across the factories. If it does happen, my guess is it won't happen until either Q3 or possibly Q4. Now, I realize I'm saying Q3 and we're already almost halfway through May, which means we're just about at the halfway mark of Q2. So Q3 isn't really all that far off, but I think if it does happen, if Quicksilver is offered on the other Teslas, it's going to be not right away. Not this quarter, not in the next month or so. It's going to take a little while, probably another 3 to 6 months or so. And to that effect, I think asking about this very thing would be something that I would love to see the retail shareholders upvote and get asked on the next quarterly earnings call, which will be coming up in, well, not too far away. It'll be mid-July, so about almost exactly 2 months from now or so. Alrighty. Before I get to the main story this week, as well as the couple of other major news stories I've got prepped for you, I wanted to mention that I hope all of you who are kindly choosing to give back to the podcast by supporting me on Patreon and doing so at that $10 per month tier or higher are enjoying this week's Lightning Round mini episode, which was about ranking every Tesla wheel design ever. This topic was on my mind because of the Cybertruck wheel option, the new Cybertruck wheel option that I'm going to talk about in just a minute. And so I was thinking, well, what do I want to do for the lightning round this week that would be fun? Well, okay, we got a new Cybertruck wheel design. I'm gonna just go through and rank every single one. And I probably put more time into not only the preparation, but the recording of this week's lightning round for you kind folks on Patreon than I have in any of the other 94 lightning rounds that are now up there. This took a while because I had to make sure I got them all. I ended up with 16, so it goes from, I start from worst and go to my favorite, so from 16 to 1. And sure enough, as soon as I posted it up, a kind Patreon backer reminded me very politely that I forgot one. I forgot the Cyclone wheel that was on the Model S in around 2014 to 16, maybe that kind of range there. Anyway, I got almost all of them, all but one. So if you think that would be fun to listen to, what I think is the worst Tesla wheel design ever, what I think is the best, and everything in between, you can check that out by joining my Patreon at that ludicrous tier. That's the $10 per month tier or higher. And you can do that on my Patreon page. That is the way you can voluntarily choose to give back to the podcast. If you really enjoy the podcast, you've been listening for a while, I'd be humbled and grateful if you would consider backing. And these weekly lightning round mini episodes are my way of saying thank you for generously supporting the podcast. So check that out at patreon.com/Tesla podcast. Patreon is spelled Patreon. Don't forget that if you want to do a once-a-year annual pledge, you can get a 10%, you will get a 10% discount if you do the annual pledge there. That's my way of saying thank you for committing for a year of support. And one other thing I'll note here, the 7-day free trial that Patreon enabled not too long ago, you can sign up for that without having to pay anything if you'd like to test out. Just take that ludicrous tier for a test drive, if you will. You can do all of that on my Patreon page, one more time, found at patreon.com/Tesla podcast. Okay, now the topic that I've been itching to discuss. New options for the Cybertruck. Specifically, 2 new options for Foundation Series Cybertruck buyers. We haven't moved to general production yet. We're still in Foundation Series. But if you are considering ordering a Foundation Series Cybertruck, if you have the ability to do that already, if your number has come up, or if it does come up here in the next coming months, you now have a couple of more options that the folks who've bought or configured a Foundation Series Cybertruck in the first almost 6 months have not had. So, if you're ordering, you can now choose tactical gray interior decor, or you can choose the same white decor that they've been offering exclusively up until now. I want to start by commenting on this one before I talk about the other option, which is, as you've already figured out by now, the wheel option. So I saw the tactical gray interior at the Cybertruck delivery event at Giga Texas back at the end of November. It changes the door panels and that front of the dashboard trim. And it changes it to, as the name implies, a very dark gray color. The seats remain black, as they are in the white decor truck. Although I do wonder if the seats in the tactical gray configuration will have black or maybe specifically tactical gray accent piping on the seats instead of white piping like the white decor option has. Now I say I wonder about this because the design studio description of either interior trim choice doesn't mention anything about the color of the seat piping, the accent piping, and the seat render in the design studio doesn't show anything changing either. But it also doesn't show the white piping when you click white. So that's why I'm just wondering if there might be that one unwritten change, if the seats might actually be a little different. But I do think it wouldn't make sense to have the only bit of white in the entire interior be on the seats, on the accent piping of the seats, if you choose tactical gray. It would seem to make more sense to change that to black or tactical gray for those seats on the tactical gray trucks. So we'll have to wait and see, once one gets delivered, what those seat accent piping looks like in there. Now, if you're curious, there's no price change up or down either way on the Foundation series. You still, you're already paying the extra premium for the Foundation series package, so you get to choose either interior option you want. But on the general production trucks, once we finally get into general production and we're at the regular MSRP of $80,000 for dual motor, $100,000 for Cyber Beast, I do fully expect the tactical gray will be the default, read free interior option, and that the white decor will be a paid upgrade, a paid option. My prediction is that the white decor will be a $1,000 option when general production comes around, although quite honestly, I think it probably should really only be $500 since the seats that you're getting in a white decor Cybertruck are still black. You're only getting the white door panels and that white dash trim, and it's $1,000 for white interior in a Model 3 or a Model Y, and you get white seats in addition to the white trim on the dashboard and the white door panels there. So that's where I say it should probably be a $500 option on the production Cybertruck, but I am expecting it to be $1,000. I hope I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I hope I'm over and not under. Under would be bad. If it's more than $1,000 for the white decor when you're not getting white seats, that would really not be great. That would not make me happy if that were the case. All right, now let's talk about the other, in my humble opinion, more interesting new option, and that is core wheels and covers. Now, we all knew this was coming. One of the pre-production trucks was spotted with these much smaller aero wheel covers way back when. Now, if you're curious, if you're not sure what these look like, I've got a picture of them on the Patreon poll. So if you don't have to be backing me on Patreon. I promise I'm not trying to just get you to go to the Patreon page and hoping you sign up. You could just Google image search them as well, but I'm just telling you a guaranteed place. Actually, I'll say it this way, so that it doesn't seem like I'm shilling for my Patreon here. You can go on my Instagram, and I've got pictures of it on there, and my Instagram is DMC_Ryan. There, okay. Anyway, the core wheels and covers are much smaller. They do not extend over the tire like the Cyber covers do. And by the Cyber wheel, I'm referring to the one that we've seen since day one, both of not only the prototype, but on every production Cybertruck thus far as well. And they are, I will say, the smaller core wheels and covers, It is a fairly similar design. It just, again, the spokes don't extend out over the tire. So it is now here. This is a thing that you can order. So I was expecting that. But what I wasn't expecting was that they would pair the tires with the wheels. So you can't get the larger Cyber wheel covers with the all-season, more range-efficient, lower rolling resistance tire that I'm about to tell you about, and you can't get the smaller core wheel cover on the all-terrain tire that the trucks with the Cyber wheels are currently getting. You have to choose one set or the other. Now, the all-season tires that had previously been promised to be available sometime in 2024, that's what's now available. So these are the tires that bump the range up to the originally promised numbers on the website. So it's these tires with these smaller wheel covers that will get you 340 miles of EPA estimated range for the all-wheel drive Cybertruck and 320 miles of range on the Cyber Beast versus the 318 miles you get with the Cyber wheel covers and the all-terrain tires on the dual motor, and the 301 miles of range you get with that setup now on the Cyber Beast. It is if you're curious as to the math, again, I'm a journalism major. Math was never my strong suit, but I did the math on a calculator, and it's a 6.5% range hit. If you're just curious about the math on that, which really, that's not that much. That's not too bad if you want to go with the larger Cyber wheel cover with the all-terrain tire. But again, what Tesla didn't really make clear at the jump on November 30th, when the Cybertruck was officially launched, when the website went live and we got to find out all the numbers, all the range numbers, all that stuff that we've been curious about for so many years, you have to pair them. Again, they are a set. It's Cyber cover with the all-terrain, or if you want the more range-efficient all-season tire, you've got to take the more range-efficient core cover with that as well. The tire is probably the bulk of the difference here. I mean, the core cover is definitely smaller, and that's probably impacting it a little bit. But I think that clearly, when you're talking about an all-terrain tire versus an all-season low-rolling resistance tire, that's going to be the bulk of where this 6.5% range difference is coming from. If you're curious, the core wheels and covers, it is the same size tire. So same 35-inch tire, just, again, one all-season, one all-terrain. What I found interesting, too, taking a literal closer look at this, is that Goodyear isn't making the all-season tire. Tesla's working with two separate tire companies to make these two different Cybertruck tires. So Goodyear, as we know, is making the all-terrain tire, but it's Pirelli that got the contract for the all-season tires. It'll be what I imagine is a custom variant of the Scorpion tire, the Pirelli Scorpion, because you can see on there Pirelli and Scorpion. So they're Pirelli Scorpions, and I suspect they're a custom variant made specifically for Tesla for the Cybertruck. Now, clearly, when general production does finally start, the all-season tires with the smaller core covers are going to be the default. My prediction is that if you want to upgrade to the all-terrain tire with that larger Cyber wheel cover, my price prediction on this, just based on what Tesla charges to upgrade other wheel options on their other cars, I think this is going to be a $2,000 option. It might be more. I could see it being $3,000, but I hope it's no more than $2,000. I think $2,000 to $3,000 is probably the range that I feel comfortable predicting. For me, this is not even a second thought. I am going to take that small range hit, and I'm going to get those all-terrain tires with the, in my humble opinion, much, much, much more attractive cyber covers. Now, I suppose me saying that probably won't come as a surprise to any of you, since you all know that I voluntarily bought the largest wheels possible on my Model 3, the 20s. But for me, and it's just my opinion, nothing more, the smaller core covers, I'm just not a fan. I do not like how they look, but it's totally subjective, right? Wheel design, much like paint color, which obviously paint color is not applicable to the Cybertruck, but wheel designs are a totally subjective thing. Your favorite might be my least favorite, or vice versa. So I made this the subject of this week's Patreon poll, and that's what I was starting to say earlier. I did upload a picture of the new core wheel covers to the Patreon poll so that if you were voting in it, you could click and you could see a picture of both wheel covers, both designs. And the results here, honestly, I'm very surprised. I'm going to say it. I'm very surprised, and I'll tell you why in a second. But the poll question was simply, which Cybertruck wheel and tire combo do you prefer? Plenty of votes on this one. Thank you to everybody that stopped by. Again, you can vote in the Patreon poll every week, totally for free. You don't have to be backing me on Patreon. There's nothing in the way. Just stop by patreon.com/Tesla podcast every week. Typically, it's Tuesday evening that I put up the poll each week. Stop by and vote in each week's Patreon poll. And so, 39%, the number one response with 39% of the vote was, I prefer the smaller core wheels and covers on the all-season tires with more range. It was close, though. 34%, so just a 5% difference, 34% of voters said, I prefer the larger Cyber wheels on the all-terrain tires with a bit less range. 10% of you said, I prefer the look of the naked black metal wheels underneath without the covers on. And then 3% of you said, I plan to get custom wheels on my Cybertruck. 15% of you voting other / just show me the results. Now, the reason I say I'm a little surprised by this is, number one, we have been looking, like we've gotten used to seeing the Cyber wheel, right? That's the one since day one, since November 2019. That's the one that Tesla's been showing. So that's kind of what we've all gotten used to. So on that basis alone, I kind of thought that this poll really wouldn't even be close. And in fact, the part I'm talking about with this being interesting is the vote wasn't close on my Instagram. I didn't realize until I went to post this. I thought, well, let me put the pictures of these on my Instagram for anybody that's following me over there that might not see it on Patreon. And Instagram has a poll thing built into it. So I put in a poll. I put in pictures of both the Cyber cover and the core cover, and I made a little poll on my Instagram as well, and it was totally opposite and pretty lopsided on Instagram. 69% of people voted for the Cyber cover, and against just, 31%, sorry. I didn't have it literally in front of me, and again, I'm bad at math. 31% voted for the smaller core wheel. So totally different results on Instagram versus on Patreon. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Anyway, thanks to everybody that took the time to vote in either place. One other thought on this topic before I move on. And that is, I think we now have all of the Cybertruck options. I think this is it. Aside from, of course, the rear-wheel drive, smaller battery version of the truck, the 250-mile version of the truck, range version of the truck. So when general production starts, whenever that is, I think you're going to be able to choose whether you want 1, 2, or 3 motors. Again, acknowledging that there's a very good chance that when general production starts, the single motor version might not be available yet. But I think you're just going to be able to choose how many motors you want, which tire and wheel combo you want, and whether you want your interior with tactical gray decor or with white decor. And just as a PS on this topic, I have to imagine that Tesla offering a couple of new options for Cybertruck at this stage is a good sign for the production ramp. We know that Tesla never likes to introduce additional complexity unless they absolutely have to. And eventually they would absolutely have to, because these are things that they've talked about in the past. But with demand right now, no doubt still very greatly exceeding supply, I gotta figure that Tesla could have easily gotten away with not introducing these two new options right now. So in that sense, I have to fairly speculate that Tesla must be feeling good about the production ramp right now. Plus, introducing these now and getting any production kinks worked out with these new options on the production line now is probably going to help ensure smoother production once general production finally starts and things really kick into high gear. Okay, before I get to the other news stories this week, I want to stop and mention my friends at Accelerate Auto and their X-Care extended warranty policy available for your Tesla. If you would like to customize your extended warranty plan rather than just take Tesla's own fixed 2-year 25,000 mile coverage plan that has to be purchased before your factory warranty is up, I humbly encourage you to check out X-Care, because the X-Care plan is totally customizable. You can go up to 10 years and up to 125,000 miles after your factory warranty is up. As I've told you a number of times, I've got a 3-year, 40,000 mile plan on mine that I'm almost a year into, not quite. So I've still got plenty of coverage left on my car, which gives me peace of mind, makes me feel good. But if you want to go more than 3 years, go for it. Less than 3 years, go for it. More than 40,000 miles, sure. Less, no problem. Whatever you want to do, X-Care is totally there to do whatever works for you, including battery and drivetrain coverage. You can add that onto your policy that's covering the whole rest of the car, or if you don't really want to worry about the rest of the car, but you do want to cover your battery and drivetrain since that's the most expensive component of your car, you can just buy a battery and drivetrain policy. X-Care is very kindly continuing to offer a $100 discount for listeners of Ride the Lightning. So head on over to their website. It's accelerateauto.com/Xcare, and that's spelled XCELERATEAUTO.com/XCARE. And don't forget to use the discount code LIGHTNING to get that $100 discount. Again, Lightning for $100 off. Thanks so much to my friends at Accelerate Auto. All right, let's get back to the news. There is plenty more of it. In fact, let's see, 1, 2, 3 more stories to talk to you about this week. The first of those is this. Tesla appears to be prepping a Siri-like voice assistant for our cars. The find on this comes courtesy of our white hat hacker friend Green the Only, who once again rolled up his sleeves and dug into the latest version of the Tesla software and found some interesting stuff that Tesla is seemingly cooking up. I have to fairly tell you here, though, that there's no guarantee that Tesla will actually bring this feature to production, since this is Green rooting around in there. It's not something that's customer-facing yet, but it certainly seems far more likely than not that we are going to see this in our cars at some point. So, what did Green find? Well, he writes on Twitter in part, the quote, beginning of what looks like Tesla voice assistant that would be activated by a wake word, aka car always listening for it, narrated by the Jenny Neutral voice by Microsoft. Thank you to Green. Well, presumably that wake word, which by the way, I can't believe I've never heard that word before. You all probably have. It's the first time I've heard that, even though I've been using things like Siri for quite a long time. Anyway, I have to guess that the wake word would simply be, "Hey Tesla," seeming, similar to how it is with Siri, although I'm not going to say the phrase because I don't want to awaken any devices that may be nearby you and annoy you. But "Hey Tesla" would be my guess for what the wake word is on that. And from there, I guess you'd be able to ask it for directions, change the music selection, and, well, I'm not really sure what else might be possible with this that we can't already do now with the built-in microphone, where you just click in that right scroll wheel if you're on a 3 or a Y, or press the microphone button if you're in an S, X, or Cybertruck. So maybe could you set reminders for yourself to charge the car when you put it into park or when you get home, since the car would know when you're home? Maybe asking it to navigate you to, say, a good Italian restaurant, and it'll parse through Google reviews of Italian restaurants that are near you and guide you to one. Maybe something like that. I will be very, very curious what the Tesla team has in store for us on this one. And then the other thing from Green's Digging that I wanted to point out, because plenty of you with young drivers in your household have asked for a teenager mode before, is something that sounds like it could very well be a teenager mode. Green's note reads, quote, "Restricted drivers that have extra restrictions. The profile icon will have training wheels attached," like the literal icon on the screen. So here's hoping then, based on that finding from Green, that that's exactly what this is. I mean, I gotta figure the training wheels icon seems like a pretty good sign that that's exactly what this feature is gonna be. Speaking of updates, Elon Musk says that FSD version 12.4 will eliminate steering wheel nags. So Farzad, who is a Tesla content creator, who's also a very nice guy, I've talked to him a few times, he responded to an Elon Musk answer to Whole Mars blog, Omar, seemingly suggesting that the steering wheel nag was going to be removed. And so to clarify, Farzad posted, quote, "Elon Musk insinuates that the nag present in FSD that asks the driver to lightly pull on the wheel will be removed in 12.4. Elon Musk," and he tagged him, "can you confirm? If true, this is a pretty big deal," end quote. To which Elon replied simply, "Yes." So, this will no doubt be very welcome news to pretty much every FSD user out there, and quite honestly, we probably don't need this since the cabin-facing camera is always watching to make sure that we're paying attention to the road anyway. Now, whether NHTSA agrees with that sentiment and allows this to go through, or if it goes through and NHTSA challenges it, we'll see about that, that remains to be seen, but it sure would be nice to be able to let FSD Supervise do its thing so long as you are supervising it with your eyes like we're all supposed to be doing. As to when FSD 12.4 will arrive, well, that's anyone's guess at this point, because as of this recording, we're on 12.3.6, and for all we know, that it could go right to 12.4 next, or we might go 12.3.7, .8, and then .9 before finally graduating to 12.4. If that were to happen, and if each of those were to take 2 weeks between versions, then, well, it could still be a good little while yet before we get 12.4. But it looks like the removal of the steering wheel nag is going to happen. So if and when it does, that'll honestly be a pretty significant milestone for the FSD program, at least in my humble opinion. Because think about where we started. Back in 2016, 2016 was with Tesla's own in-house developed system. Think about where we started back in 2013 with Autopilot 1, Hardware 1, and the Mobileye system. And then where Tesla had to start from zero after they got rid of, they broke up. They had a very ugly business divorce with Mobileye. And they started over in the fall of 2016. And so that's a pretty long journey. It's been a while. And now, if like me, you've been in the FSD beta since when they first really kind of opened it up to a decent number of the public, because there was a much smaller group that was in it for quite a while. But if you jumped in there in I believe it was October of 2022? No, 21, because it's been over 2 years now. So, fall of 21, and if you just think about for a second, remember what it was like when you first got it? It was kind of scary, and you'd never take your hands off the wheel. It just wasn't even close to being ready for that. And you experience it now, whether you have been in the beta the whole time or you've tried it out as part of the FSD trial, it's pretty darn good now. And it probably is at the point where, again, my opinion doesn't matter. Only NHTSA's opinion ultimately matters here. But in my opinion, it probably is ready to have the steering wheel nag removed, so long as your eyes are facing forward and watching the road. So big milestone here, if you ask me. And finally, in the Tesla news this week, full volume production on the Tesla Semi is still 18 to 20 months away or so, based on the timeline that Tesla's given us. But some good news on the platform's development this week, as more Tesla Semi buyers got at least one truck to do some field testing with. Walmart, Costco, Cisco, and US Foods all took delivery of a pilot production Tesla Semi. So now Tesla will be able to gather even more field data from more of its corporate customers who are going to use it for hauling things besides potato chips. So they're each going to have a different use case than what PepsiCo has been doing with their Tesla Semis thus far. Presumably, Tesla will continue to expand this pilot program to the other companies that have placed orders for Tesla Semis many years ago now. I'm talking FedEx was on that list, Anheuser-Busch was on that list, before eventually these companies all get their full and complete Tesla Semi orders fulfilled once that proper volume production starts on the official 1.0 version of the truck in, again, late 2025, early 2026. Because the version, at least from what Tesla has told us, now this is not their number, this is me sort of applying a label to it that I hope is fair, but the version that's out in the field right now with PepsiCo and now with Walmart, Costco, Cisco, and US Foods is probably more like a 0.9 beta version, right? Like so close to shipping, so close to final, but not quite there yet, because Tesla's told us that they're gathering this data from their partners and they're continuing to dial in the truck before it gets to full volume production in another, again, 18 to 20 months or so. All right, that is the end of another very busy Tesla news week. But stick with me, I've got some of your Ride the Lightning phone calls teed up and ready to go right after this.
Hi, this is Franz von Holzhausen, and you're listening to Ride the Lightning with Ryan McCaffrey, the Tesla unofficial podcast.
Welcome to the Ride the Lightning hotline. It is your chance to call in and potentially be featured right here on this podcast. If that sounds good to you, I welcome and invite you to call in. There are two easy ways to do it. Either use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software, record your question, please try to keep it to 90 seconds or less so that I can get to as many callers each week as possible, and then email that file to me at my Tesla email address, which is teslapodcast@gmail.com. Or you can just call in and leave a message anytime, day or night, on the Ride the Lightning hotline itself. That toll-free number is 1-888-989-TSLA. Again, that's 1-888-989-8752. And if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. First up this week is Terry from the Sunshine Coast in Australia.
Hi Ryan, Terry here from the Sunshine Coast in Australia again. Love your podcast. Just listening to episode 457 where you were mentioning the problem that you have in the US where the Performance Model 3 gets over that tax limit very quickly if you order options. We have the same problem in Australia where if you're ordering the Performance Model 3 and you tick too many boxes, you're not going to get certain government rebates, etc. It seems to me that a really easy solution for Tesla would be to offer a version of the Performance Model 3 that's $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 cheaper to bring it in under those limits, even if you tick, the white interior, red paint options. But it has some limitations, such as reduced range, reduced acceleration, something like that. And as soon as you've paid, got qualified for your tax credit, driven it home, you can get into your Tesla app, pay the $5,000, get that feature back, and you're back to a full Performance Model 3 for exactly the same price, but it qualifies for the rebate because that extra upgrade happens after the purchase, so it's not included in the retail price. Just thought that might be an easy solution and one that would make a lot of people very happy and wouldn't be a cost to Tesla at all. Yeah, really enjoy the podcast. Keep up the great work.
Terry, thank you for your call. I'd absolutely love to see Tesla do this, as it does seem like a totally doable, totally reasonable solution. In fact, Tesla's done it before, not with a performance model, but with other cars. In Canada specifically, if memory serves correctly, and if I recall that exactly right, they software locked the range specifically so that the price would be low enough for it to qualify for a government subsidy. So we know that Tesla has been willing to do this in the past. Let's see them do it again. Come on, Tesla. Good stuff, Terry. Thank you once again for calling in. Next up is Joe in San Diego.
Hi, Ryan. This is Joe in San Diego. Just wanted to let you know that I took your tip about the Model S yoke replacement available from the service center for my wife's Model S. So we got that. I put a service request for the yoke, for the squiggly thing in the middle of it, and they came out to the house, and it took about 15 minutes, and they gave us the new yoke with the honking horn in the middle. Thanks for the tip, Ryan. Bye.
So glad to hear it, Joe. I'm happy that I could help in some small way, although again, I do have to mention, I got a caveat to everybody out there. I cannot promise that this will work. Every service center is different, so your mileage may vary, but I've had a number of reports of this working for people as it did for you, Joe. So enjoy that new and improved yoke, and good luck to everybody else out there who would like to get one in their car. I've got time for one more call this week. It is from Robert in Indiana. See if I can help him out.
Hey, Ryan, it's Robert from Lanesville, Indiana. Longtime listener, first-time caller. I have a question that you might be the only person on the planet who either can answer or might be willing to answer. It relates to purchasing used Teslas, in particular Model Y long range for me. It is impossible to find a clear answer as to a couple things. One, whether or not, if the car you're looking at has acceleration boost included, whether that transfers to the new purchaser. I've seen some information that indicates it might rely on whether you're purchasing from a dealer or from an individual. And then the second related question is whether the particular Model Y long range you're looking to purchase can receive acceleration boost, either if it currently doesn't have it, or if it does have it and it somehow gets removed when you purchase it, can you add it back? I, again, can't find any clear answer on this. I know you're not a technical spokesperson for Tesla, but I thought you would maybe have the best information, and perhaps other people, other listeners would be either interested in this or have some additional information. So appreciate all your work. Appreciate the podcast. Keep up the good work. Thanks. Bye.
Hey, Robert, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for your call. I appreciate your confidence in me, but I can only answer this with reasonable certainty, not total certainty, which is what I would prefer to be able to give you. And while I'd fully expect Tesla to deactivate acceleration boost on any car traded into them, meaning that nothing you would see on tesla.com/inventory would list acceleration boost, if you purchase a long-range Y that has acceleration boost on it from a private party, that absolutely should transfer just as FSD does if you're buying privately. I'm more confident in answering your second question. I can't see any logical way that Tesla would somehow not allow acceleration boost to be on a second-hand long-range Model Y, no matter where you bought the car, if you were ready and willing to give Tesla $2,000 to unlock it. There's just no way that they would refuse your money. That doesn't make sense. So if you purchase that used long-range Y without acceleration boost, it should be available to you in the upgrade section of your Tesla app once the car is transferred to your possession. Investing some of your used EV tax credit from the Inflation Reduction Act, should you meet the income requirements, of course, on making your Model Y a bit more fun, well, that's definitely a move that I can personally smile about and get behind. Happy Model Y hunting, Robert, and have fun out there. Thanks to everybody that kindly took the time to call in. I promise I will get to more of your Ride the Lightning phone calls on next week's podcast. Keep them coming. I gave you the 2 call-in instructions, the 2 ways that you can call in at the top of this segment. So if you do want to give me a ring, refer back to the top of this segment for the instructions there. But stick around. I'm not quite done yet. I've got your pro tip of the week and more coming up next.
This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Sierra 117. You're listening to Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast. You know, that Cybertruck looks a lot like a warthog, doesn't it? Master Chief, out.
As for what's going on with me and my car, I've got to get my car cleaned up and ready for next weekend, or I guess as you're listening to this coming weekend. The folks at Unplugged Performance, Ben Sheffer and all the great folks down there that do such great aftermarket Tesla performance accessories and mods, they're opening a Bay Area shop up here in the San Francisco area over in the East Bay there, and they're having a little open house. So that's put on by the local Tesla club, and I'm looking forward to going over there and checking that out and hanging out with some Tesla folks. Hopefully some of you might be there as well, so that should be a good time this coming weekend. How about an entertainment recommendation? It's a TV show this week, and that show is X-Men 97 on Disney+. So I'm 43, which means when the original X-Men animated series was on in the 90s, I was kind of the perfect age for it. And I remember liking it quite a bit, and it's really cool, I think, that Disney's brought this thing back as just a continuation of the old cartoon. They've brought back, I think, if not all, most of the voice actors. They've kept the animation style the same, even though I'm sure it's just all computers now, but it looks the same. The storyline just picks up where it left off. And I have to say, I had actually let my Disney Plus subscription lapse. I'd been doing it annually, and at the last time it was due up for renewal, Disney was like really increasing the price by a lot, and I was like, I don't really watch it enough to justify this. I'm going to keep this money in my pocket, and so I did, and I haven't had Disney Plus for a bit, but I kept hearing how great this show was, and so I thought, all right, I'm going to dive in now that the season's about over, and I can just binge the whole thing. And I have to say, it's been an awesome show. It has been really, really good. And I suspect it would be great even if you never did see the original 90s one, but if you did, it's extra good. It is an absolutely fantastic animated series that kids can totally watch, but there's also some interesting kind of story beats for adults there too. I don't mean anything that's inappropriate for kids, but you'll see what I mean if you check it out. Anyhow, there's my entertainment recommendation for the week. Time for your pro tip of the week. It comes from Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
Hi, Ryan. This is Bill from Sterling. I love the podcast. Listen to as much as I can almost every week. I have a potential pro tip of the week. It concerns the navigation feature and the list of destinations that pops up when you touch the nav bar. Ever since I got FSD beta installed, I've been putting in all my local spots that I go to so I can test out the FSD and see how it does. I've been doing this for about 2 years now, and what I've noticed is that list that comes up when you touch navigate is not just sorted by like the most recent place you went, but it's predicting where it thinks you want to go. And if you put all your routine destinations in there, it gets very good at it. For example, every Sunday I go to church, and when I touch nav, the location of that pops up as the first item. And then afterwards, I usually go meet my wife for brunch at a local restaurant. If I touch nav at that time, that location pops up. If it's in the evening and I'm going to one of my club events on that evening, that place pops up. None of these things are necessarily in the calendar. It seems to be just learning it from where you go. So I think a pro tip would be, if you want to really use that feature, put all your destinations in there and it will learn your specific pattern of life. Thank you. I hope this helps, and have a great week. Love the podcast. Bye.
Thanks, Bill. You are absolutely right, and I've also noticed this. It is almost frighteningly good at times at predicting where you want to go. This is a great suggestion. Input those destinations into your nav all the time, and the car will end up serving you better. Thank you so much, Bill. If anybody else out there has a good pro tip of the week that you'd like to share with me and your fellow Tesla owners and enthusiasts, you can send that in the same way that you send in the regular Ride the Lightning hotline calls, and I gave you the instructions for that just a few minutes ago. Before I get out of here for this week, I want to mention some friends of Ride the Lightning that hopefully can be of use to you sooner or later, starting with AbstractOcean.com, makers of hundreds upon hundreds of different excellent aftermarket Tesla accessories for all five Teslas that are currently in production. Check them out at abstractocean.com. Click on whichever Tesla you own, and it will show you all of the aftermarket accessories that are available for your car. Pile anything that you like and everything that you like into your online shopping cart. Maybe it's the tempered glass screen protectors that are custom made and custom fit, made with the aluminosilicate glass, which is the same stuff that Corning Glass uses for Gorilla Glass. And maybe it's a lighting kit. Who knows? There's so much stuff on there. You got to just go and take a look. See what they got. See what you like. Throw it in your cart. And when you get to checkout, use the coupon code RTL Podcast. That's all one word, no spaces. RTL Podcast at checkout to get a nice 15% off of your first order. Thank you very much to AbstractOcean.com for continuing to offer that. Also, the Snap Plate and the new Snap Plate Plus, available for S, 3, X, and Y. Get yours at everyamp.com/RTL, and then there's a discount code on top of that. Just punch in RTL at the checkout for that one as well for a discount, and that's going to get you that discount on the Snap Plate or the Snap Plate Plus. This is the front license plate bracket that I personally recommend rather than using the one that Tesla gives you with your car, because the one that Tesla gives you with your car sticks on via automotive tape, automotive adhesive. So if you ever want to remove it for any reason, it's going to leave behind a very nasty, very ugly, very difficult to get all the way off without damaging your paint adhesive residue. So get yourself a Snap Plate or the Snap Plate Plus, which is even stronger. and that's made to not break away, whereas the regular snap plate is made to just sacrifice itself to break away if you were to accidentally hit something and if a car wash decimated it, whereas the Snap Plate Plus is designed to just stand up to anything. So either one, whichever way you want to go, again, head on over to everyamp.com/RTL and use the coupon code RTL. BudgetSafeSolar.com. If you have solar on the mind and you want to put solar on your roof, check them out, BudgetSafeSolar.com. You're probably going to check out multiple solar providers. I would. I recommend you that you do, whether it's Tesla, Budget Safe Solar, etc., etc. There's plenty of choices out there these days. That's the good news. I went with Budget Safe Solar, and I've been very, very happy with the system we got. As I've told you before, we have a just weird, very vertical, 100-plus-year-old San Francisco house. Not a lot of real estate on that roof for solar panels. And so the Budget Safe Solar folks worked with my wife and I told them, I want as much firepower on this roof as I can get on this small roof. They ended up giving me basically the highest octane panels that they have. And now we've got 100% energy offset. And that's exactly what I wanted. They got it for me, and I'm super stoked. They also now offer home battery storage in addition, as part of your solar energy system, if you want it. You might not necessarily want to, but I suspect most listeners of this podcast, if you can budget for it, you're probably going to want to complete that loop, close that loop, and get the home battery storage as well, whether it's a Tesla Powerwall or one of the other choices that they have as well. So head on over, BudgetSafeSolar.com, get in touch with them, get a quote. If you end up proceeding with a solar installation, I humbly ask that you use the referral code RTL. Immaculate Reflections, an awesome detailer based here in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. I couldn't recommend them more. You can head on over to their website, irdetailing.com, to see examples of their work there, as well as get in touch. More examples, of course, just customer reviews on the Yelp page, which is yelp.com/Immaculate Reflections. You can also see stuff that Jeff, the owner there, has posted of work he's done for customers on his Instagram. His handle there is Immaculate_Reflections. And again, I could not speak more highly of Immaculate Reflections. Whether you want to do paint correction to get your paint finish looking as good as it possibly can, take out all those paint defects, those swirls and scratches that either have gotten in there over time or just came out of the factory that way, because every car from every manufacturer, not just Tesla, leaves the factory with some level of flaw in the paint. And so a talented detailer can clean that up for you. Maybe you want to do paint protection film on some or all of the car, as I have. Maybe you want to do a ceramic coating so that you don't have to wax the car for the next 3, more like probably closer to 5 years, or even more if you take really good care of the car. Check them out, irdetailing.com. If you do reach out, and again, the website, irdetailing.com, is the way to reach out, be sure to mention that you're a Ride the Lightning listener, and there will be a nice little Ride the Lightning listener discount courteously extended to you. Thank you, Jeff at Immaculate Reflections, for continuing to do that. Finally, the Patreon, I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, but I'll mention it again real quick here. Patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. There's plenty going on there every single week, from early access to each week's new episode for folks at the base tier, $5 a month or higher. So just the $5 a month tier will get you early access to each week's show. There's also the aforementioned Patreon poll every week, in which you don't have to be backing me or supporting me at all. You can just go and vote totally for free, all good on that, open to the public. Vote in the poll each week. And then that lightning round, that weekly bonus mini episode that I do every week exclusively on Patreon, that's for the folks at the $10 tier or higher. As my thank you to them, there are now 95 of those. Goodness knows how many hours that is. I suppose I could add it up, but I'm not going to right now. But that's a lot of extra stuff, and it's all the whole point of the lightning round, or at least a driving principle, if you will, that I employ with those is that they're not timely. It's very rare that they're timely and that they kind of have a shelf life. The goal for those is to be evergreen, so that anytime you would be kind enough to join the Patreon and support me at that $10 tier or higher, that they would all still be fun to listen to. So that's the hope, that's the goal. Check out the Patreon page if you have been listening to the podcast for a while, you enjoy it, you get a lot out of it, and you'd like to give something back. Patreon is the way to do that, and the website again is patreon.com/Tesla podcast. Patreon spelled Patreon. If you're not already following the podcast on your favorite podcast service, I certainly recommend that you do that. It's free. That doesn't cost anything. It just means if you follow the podcast, you will get notified every time there's a new episode rather than you having to remember to go seek it out every time a new episode drops, which, as always, is every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. So you can follow me on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube Podcasts, on TuneIn, on Spotify, etc. Just search Ride the Lightning Tesla, and you might as well throw in podcast. Ride the Lightning Tesla podcast. You should find me no problem on any of those podcast services. Finally, you can email me anytime. My Tesla podcast email address is teslapodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Twitter/X and or Instagram. I have the same username on both of those, and that username is DMC_Ryan. Finally, before I go, I'd like to say hello and thank you to the upper tier Patreon backers who, as part of their thank you for very generously supporting the podcast, I give them a shout out at the end of every episode. So I'm going to do that now. Starting with the Maximum Plaid backers, we once again last week, my chair is getting squeaky and it's annoying me. I don't know if you're hearing that, but it is, I try to be professional here, and a squeaky chair is the last thing that I want. That doesn't sound good if you're hearing that. My goodness, chair. We'll figure this out. Anyway, we had a great time at the monthly Patreon Zoom hangout last weekend. We talked about the supercharging team being laid off. We talked about Cybertruck. We talked about lots of fun stuff. We went over our hour by like 5 or 6 minutes, as we often do. You know, I'm always trying to be respectful of everybody's time, but we have such a good time chatting that I look up and it's like, oh, we're past time already. So it's a good problem to have. I really enjoy talking to everybody every single month. So join us, if you will. If you're interested in joining the Patreon at that Maximum Plaid tier, I'd love to have you as part of the monthly Patreon Zoom chats. And now I will thank said Maximum Plaid backers who are eligible for that monthly chat. Thank you so much to Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, the Galpin family, Ryan from New York City, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Brett Libano, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Michael Williams, Will Stedman, Derek Nesselrote, Justin Perez, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Corey O'Donnell, Aaron, John Cody, Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Richard Corley, Chris Osborne, KB, Doug Carey, James Gregory, Adam Lavoie, ContactOneCallCenter.com, Jason Chalukas, Travis Krenzel, Bruce Otterstein, Tom Behan, Josh Pennington, Matt Kalin, John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Sean Tisdale, Dustin Hart, Michael Gallo, Derek Finley, got to meet him at the last hangout too, that was nice, Charles Clement, and Rav was there too. Big thanks to all of you for your very generous Patreon support. And a big thanks as well to the Roadster in Space tier backers, the highest tier of the Patreon. Big thanks goes out to Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, Kara Weston, Robert from near Philly, Kristen Rumble, American Home Contractors, and GetAmber.com. And finally, the Grandfathered in Plaid level supporters. Huge thanks for your continued generous support to George Cassiopo, Logan Willis, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, David Perella, Dennis Peak, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jerome Strack, Jamie Dalton, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, David J. Howes, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Ish, Not Elon Musk, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. And with that, we come to the end of Ride the Lightning episode 458. Man, less than a year away from number 500. I wonder if Franz might want to come back on for 500, because if I do the math, let's see here, I think 500 will be around like March. And let's see, March of 2025. General production on Cybertruck, I sure hope is started by then. Hopefully the next gen Roadster's been re-revealed and he'd finally answer my Roadster questions. And then, of course, Model 2.5 would have to be revealed. Cybercab will have been revealed. There'd be a lot to talk to Franz about. So I'll have to do what I can. I'll have to see. I mean, it's tough. You know, it's not easy because it's just getting in touch with these folks when there's no PR team. That's, if you're not familiar, traditionally, if you want to talk to somebody at a company, you go through the public relations team. At Tesla, there hasn't been one for 5 years or so now, 4 or 5 years. So it's not easy to. I wish it were easy to get Franz on here. It's just always, it's a rare privilege, which is why I get super excited. I mean, that second time when he came on, a year and a few months ago now, beginning of last year, it was just such a thrill. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe that's certainly the first thing that comes to mind would be to get Franz back in here for episode 500. Anyway. We're only at episode 458 for now, so God willing, I'll be in good health to keep going to episode 500. Everything will be good, and you'll all be in good health, and we'll all continue to drive and enjoy our Teslas. So, for a snoozing Daisy the Boxer, I'm Ryan McCaffrey. This was Ride the Lightning episode 458. Happy electric motoring, my friends, and I'll see you back here next week.
Elon Musk, people don't like Elon Musk. The guy founded PayPal and Tesla, and people are like, yeah, but he's a troll and a bad dad. I'm like, so was mine. He did nothing to fight climate change. Also, have you been in a Tesla? Have you been in a Tesla? My buddy let me drive his Tesla. I laughed out loud at how fast it went. Been clinically depressed my entire life, on dozens of medications, in a Tesla for 13 seconds, cured forever.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.